Welcome to Evolve, Reinventing Leadership, Building Freedom Cultures, with thought leader and award-winning author Yvette Bethel. This podcast provides you with insights and ideas you can use to reinvent your culture through trust and the principles of interconnectivity, flow, and balance. At a time when the world is rewriting the rules of work, traditional leadership practices are not enough. It's time to perceive persistent challenges through a new lens. It's time to evolve.
All right. So hello, everyone, and welcome once again. This is your host, Yvette Bethel. And the topic for this episode of Evolve is leadership through disruption and integrity-driven cultures. Our guest, Rob Haynie, is the CEO of Life Insurance Settlements Incorporated. Rob is viewed as the Michael Jordan of life insurance settlements, except instead of dunking basketballs, he's demolishing outdated financial strategies. Rob is based in Florida, and he has spent more than 30 years transforming what most people perceive as a tedious insurance policy into a fountain of opportunity. And with this, he built a multi-million-dollar company of over 40 members. He's been acknowledged as one of the most influential figures in the life settlements industry and hosts his own podcast, Unlocking the Hidden Value of Your Life Insurance. So with that, I say hello and welcome to Evolve, Rob.
Well, thank you for having me, Yvette. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. So I'd love to start off by exploring what got you started on this path to disruption.
Well, it's a great question, and I think you're going to enjoy the answer. So, in 1993, August of 1993 to be precise, I was in the gym, and a gentleman who I knew from the gym and knew that he was also in sales approached me and said, "Hey, would you like to come work for me in this new business? We're helping people sell their life insurance policies who mainly are afflicted with HIV and AIDS, and they're dying, so we help them sell their policies before they pass away to use the money for whatever they want to use it for, mainly medicine and healthcare." And underneath my breath, I thought, there could not be a more ghoulish thing in the history of mankind than that. So politely, I just continued on my workout and thought, there's no way I will do this. And it was then when I was driving my car home and got to the first traffic light, I realized, Tiffany, we're keeping the insurance companies honest. And without another single thought, I said, I'm in. I then told my girlfriend, now my wife, and my mother what I was going to do. My mother didn't talk to me for 4 months. My wife thought I was insane. And 32 years later, I'm on your podcast talking about my life in the life insurance settlement industry.
Ah,
That's how I get into it.
so what's the first thing you disrupted?
So in theory, when you buy a life insurance policy, you're sold it when you're young, and you anticipate that you'll use it later on. Well, hopefully later on, when you pass away, your family will get the proceeds, and they'll be able to bury you or do other things revolving around your wealth, so to speak. And then, of course, it's there for protection in case anything happens to you along that journey, such as a car accident, an illness, etc. But what you don't know is 90% of all life insurance that's ever issued never goes to claim. Think about that. $17 trillion in force, and 90% never goes to claim. So the disruption that we're part of is to say, you own your life insurance policy like you own any other large asset, like your home. You own it. It's real property. Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, in a 1911 decision, said that life insurance holds all the same properties as real estate. That I can take my life insurance policy and I can gift it to my church. I can gift it to my kids. I can take it away from my kids and gift it to another philanthropic organization. So I'm in control of my life insurance policy. So if I'm in control of it when I gift it, I'm in control of it when I sell it. And everybody says, well, who are you going to sell it to? Well, our marketplace, there's a slew of accredited investors or institutional investors who are buying a life insurance policy as an asset because it's uncorrelated. They like to buy life insurance policies, pay the premiums on the clients based upon his or her life expectancy. And then at some future date and time when they pass away, they get the full death benefit. So how it works is pretty simple. If you've got a life insurance policy of $500,000 and you have $25,000 in cash surrender value, if you decide you don't want the policy anymore, you can surrender for $25,000. We recommend you go see if someone will give you more than $25,000. So in this case, you'll get $75,000. That person now gets $75,000, and the person that bought the policy or entity investor will pay those premiums for however long that individual lives.
Right.
And when they pass away, they get the full death benefit. But they're not just buying one policy. They're buying hundreds, in some cases, thousands.
Oh,
So you
gotcha.
will make mistakes. Somebody will live long, much longer than you thought. And unfortunately, some people will die much sooner than you thought.
Right.
So they're going to compile a portfolio of these policies. And if you've ever seen a bell curve, that's
Right.
what it's going to look like. And the people that die soon, people that die long, and everybody else should die in the middle. So life insurance companies work very, 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 I'm going to say very as many times as possible, hard to make sure you have no idea you can sell your policy. They're never going to tell you.
Mm.
They'll actually prohibit some of their insurance agents from talking about it, captive insurance agents. New York Life comes to mind. You're not
Now,
allowed to.
some of my listeners are not from the United States. Does this apply to other countries?
No, it doesn't. Well, hold on. I shouldn't say no, it does. It does apply to Canada, and if you have a life insurance policy from a U.S. carrier and you may live somewhere else, you could still qualify. Because most
Mhm.
insurance doesn't work the way it does in America and other places. Like, for example, yeah, England has a contestability and suicide period that lasts from the second you buy the policy until you no longer have the policy. In America, it's 2 years.
All right, so I'm going to make a shift because I think that background is very important. And you said something earlier where initially you turned it down, this whole different way of doing things with life insurance. And then and I gathered that it had to do with what you felt was it had to do something with integrity.
Mhm.
And so and then you decided, oh, really, this probably doesn't. There's something going on here that's quite interesting. So can you explain to our listeners that when everything is changing rapidly, how do you make decisions based on principles? That may be non-negotiable, and how do you decide which ones can be flexible?
Well, this case is going to be very easy. So number one, um, if it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do, right? That's the bottom line. It's always the right time to do the right thing. And in this case, policy owner has an asset that's been hidden from view on purpose. They don't, life insurance is sold to you as the what if. If you buy life insurance and something happens to you, you're covered. But if nothing happens to you, as time marches on, at least in the United States, the policy premiums get more expensive. So people get rid of the policy because they just can't afford it anymore. COVID taught us that life insurance and other financial products, quite frankly, are a luxury. So when people are making decisions between paying their mortgage or paying their rent, paying for the medication, buying food, putting gas in the car, et cetera, those things take precedent over an insurance premium on a life insurance policy. That becomes a luxury. So when you talk about integrity, a lot of people use that word and really don't know what it means. The bottom line for me was I know everything there is to know about my business. I know everything that's legal to do in my business. So I don't pitch ideas or concepts that aren't real. I talk to people about facts. This is the fact. And what I tell people is you own your life insurance, you're in charge, and I'm going to show you some other options that maybe you've never heard of before. And in the case of going back into the early 90s when I went, it was mainly HIV and AIDS. So people were dying. They were ostracized from their family. They're
Mhm.
probably their lover or their significant other passed away. They were living by themselves. They had no job. They had no income, and there was no medicine readily available to do anything about it. So they would use the money from a life insurance policy to buy medicine that they would never get any other way. There's a movie came out years ago, The Dallas Buyers Club, Academy Award winning actor and best supporting actor, were in it. It talked about selling life insurance as one of the components to help people got money. What happened was when we were selling these policies for folks that were literally, it was a death sentence. They were taking the medicines that they got from the proceeds of the policy and lived long enough to where they were able to determine that putting those different medicines together, forming what they called the cocktail,
Right.
that acted as a agent that lets you live like you do if you're diabetic on insulin. And they were able to live. So we've saved lives back then, literally saved your life. You were going to die, now you're alive. Uh, Real quickly, I'll just add, since this is a podcast your listeners like to watch documentaries, there's one called Cashing Out that was just on the Oscar shortlist for this exact business, which was the
Great.
genesis of the business. So we always feel like we were the David and the insurance company is the Goliath. And it's our goal to educate people about this option because it's real, and let them make the decision for themselves. We don't force anyone to do this, but we think it's a good idea to get it appraised and see what it's worth. So then you're a bit better able to make a decision that better suits you and your family's needs.
Interesting. So, how does this, obviously you have 40 people working with you. How do you, kind of help them to understand that you're doing a good thing for people, giving them this opportunity to live? And how do you ensure that integrity is cemented or planted is a better word within your team members?
Well, you'll love this. Our business, we're a broker. We represent people who sell their life insurance policy. We don't buy them, so we represent them. Everything that we do, every dollar that we would make is transparent. It's disclosed. They know exactly what we're making. Now, we're in the life insurance business, helping people sell a life insurance policy they already own. And whatever we make, they'll agree to that amount of money or say, wait a minute, that's too much, you make less, or, oh, that's not enough, you make more. Oh, by the way, that's never happened. We're just saying it for your audience. And then they can see exactly what's happening from a transparent viewpoint to say, is this something I'd like to move forward? Now, I will tell you that on average, in a life settlement, we help them get 6.5 times more than they get if they surrender the policy back to the carrier. 6.5 times more. So just to make that illustrate that, if they were going to get $100,000 on a $5 million policy of cash surrender value, we're going to give them $650,000. Generally speaking, they're happy with that. They also know what our commission is going to be made. So there's nothing hidden. Everything is, all the cards are on the table and everybody knows exactly what they're doing. We do that on purpose. Now, when you buy a life insurance policy from wherever you buy it from, you do have no idea what they're making as a commission. None, because the insurance agent works for the insurance company on that transaction. But if that same policy 30 years later gets sold, the insurance agent no longer works for the carrier. He works for himself, thereby his commissions disclosed. That is to discourage the act of a life settlement.
Now, I want to shift away from the client and shift to your team members. You do have a team working with you?
Yes.
Yeah. So with regard to them, how do you instill integrity within your company and get them to buy into it and exhibit it?
Well, there's nothing to buy into. The act of helping someone sell a life insurance policy is in the best interest of the client, whether they get a higher offer or not. It's to just to exhaust that option. So we instill in them that everything works the same way. The contracts are what the contracts are. We have a system in place of where we send every file to make sure that every single buyer gets an opportunity to bid on it. And then we conduct an auction. We don't conduct it in the sense of it ends on Friday at 3 o'clock. It ends when the client tells us it ends. So that's how we do it. Everything is just basically working on behalf of the client and communicating what we're doing to the client.
I think in moments of crisis, leaders often reveal their true characters. And can you share a time when disruption forced you to confront your own leadership limits?
Well, I've 32 years. I've seen a couple things. Number one, I was in a business that relied predominantly on people living with HIV and AIDS, and then that was cured. So virtually overnight, our business was over. Luckily, we've been in the business long enough to where different types of capital came to the market. And so instead of looking at people with life-threatening illnesses or cancers and AIDS, et cetera, we'll look at older people and we'll bump up against mortality and we'll buy policies on older people based upon. Well, I was there when that happened. So
Mhm.
we transitioned from the viatical settlement industry into the life settlement industry today. And then as we did that, we had this other event called 2001, um, September 11th. And as we know, that was a major disruption in the financial markets, et cetera. So there's a little bit of a bump there, not too much of one, surprisingly, because people needed money now more than ever in that era. It wasn't too much longer that we had the same type of thing happen with the financial crisis and the subprime mortgage. Same thing. Credit markets dried up. Capital to buy policies died. So what we did was we just put our nose down. We said we're just going to continue to work like we've always worked because our business is weird in the sense that no matter if it's good or bad, people always need money. It's not like everyone just fits the cookie cutter example of, oh, I need money today and everybody needs it. No, everybody has a different need at a different time. So we just stayed true to ourselves, kept our nose to the grindstone, as they say, and plowed ahead. And then I've taken a leadership role in the association. I'm the board of director. I'm on the board, chairman of the board of directors of LISA, which is the Life Insurance Settlement Association that I took over January the 1st.
Mhm.
But I've been in that, so I've been a member of that for 32 years as well, because it started when I first got into the business, and I've been on the board for 22 of those years. So people kind of look to me to be a leader in the sense that I am a leader, and because of that, I don't make mistakes willingly or knowingly. I'm not going to say that I'm perfect and don't make mistakes because I do, but I don't make mistakes that jeopardize myself, my business, and the employees underneath me and the industry as a whole.
From a strategy standpoint, I think disruption can test strategy. It also can test the alignment with the core values. Can you share a time when you had that kind of a test and what you did to?
I mean, because I've been in the business as long as I have, things that would have rattled me to the core
Hmm.
30 years ago do not do that anymore
Hmm.
because it's not just happening to me. In other words, when it's happening to my market, the country, and in some cases, God forbid, the world,
Yeah, that's
which we
true.
all saw.
Really.
So, but because people have a life insurance policy, as I mentioned earlier, COVID taught us that it's a luxury. When times get tough for folks, the life insurance policy is one of the first things to go. They may get rid of Netflix, but then when the premium comes in for the life insurance company, like, yeah, that's gone too. So you're always tested. You're tested in good times just as much as you are in bad. There's always the tendency or the possibility of taking a shortcut or working with somebody that's a little less scrupulous than somebody else. And we just don't do that. I was told a long time ago by my parents that there's black, don't do it, and there's white, go for it, and there's gray, and that is a shade of black, don't do it. So it's either clear sailing or we don't go down that road. Things do get tough on that clear sailing road, but we don't need to make things tougher on ourselves.
For new business owners, you mentioned initially you would get rattled, and now those same things won't rattle you anymore. Can you tell us a little bit about how you grew to the level that you're at, and you're selective in what you've allowed to rattle you?
Well, the first two times I got rattled, right, would be when the people with AIDS were no longer dying from it and their business was over, and then 9/11.
Mm,
And I noticed that I wasn't alone, right? So I was nervous and scared, but I also knew I was part of a community that was nervous and scared because they as effects those both of those things didn't affect just me, they affect everybody.
okay.
So I knew, in my previous job before AIDS was cured, we had a boss who we went to work for initially. He's one of the greatest guys in the world, David Reed, and then he passed away, and then his wife took the business over, and she was challenging. I'll just leave it at that, to say the least. And I was nicknamed Elmer in my office, and that's because I kept everything glued together.
Oh, glue. I thought Elmer Fudd.
No, Elmer the glue.
Okay, go for it.
So I knew that the best thing to keep my mind at ease was to help other people who were going through the same thing. Worry about myself in the context of the more I help other people, the better it's going to be for everybody. And that's what I've always done. So when things get bad, and things will get bad again, they always do, we prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And in the meantime, we just keep going, because the bottom line is everybody's situation that we deal with is different. They're all different. Someone needs money more today than anybody has ever needed it since I've been working this business. So we treat that person like it's the first time we've ever done a transaction. And that usually pays off for everybody.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you, over time and experience, you learn to navigate in uncertainty. And so the uncertainty was less triggering, shall we say,
Right,
over
absolutely.
time.
Yep.
Yes.
Because
So,
the other thing I'd say, just to add to that,
mhm,
is when you look back at it, when things get calm, you look back and you thought, what would worrying like at another level or another degree have done? And the answer is nothing.
right.
Worrying is like, you can worry, but to get crazy about it would distract you from fixing it.
Mhm.
So, now if it's something like, I drove my car and a tractor trailer landed on top of me,
Oh
and I
my
don't know.
goodness, excuse me.
So, I mean, the things you can't control, right? So, for example, like a giant rock lands on top of your car and you're killed on a highway. Can't worry about that. That's when you can't worry about it. But when you have the opportunity to worry and you realize that going or freaking out, as my mother used to say, no one ever solved the problem by freaking out.
Hmm. That's absolutely right.
So I just try not to freak out. You definitely get nervous, but you don't want to go crazy.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to take a break. Nobody solves a problem when you're freaking out. I think that's a good segue. And this is your host, Yvette Bethel, and we'll be right back after this message.
Organizational Soul is turning 20. Over the past 2 decades, we've helped leaders strengthen their HR, culture, and OD strategies. As we have evolved, we've been working with leaders who go beyond traditional HR and OD, perceiving their organizations as living systems and valuing trusted connections. If the usual tools haven't delivered, we can help you explore new ways of organizing people, culture, power, and vision through an ecosystem lens. Learn more about our newest program, the Living Systems Council, at orgsoul.com.
Welcome back to Evolve. Our guest for this episode is the founder of Life Insurance Settlements Incorporated, Rob Haynie. Welcome back, Rob.
Thank you.
All right. So we were just getting really interested, getting into some interesting discussions here. And I'm gonna make a change again. We'll do a bit of a shift. How can leaders embed trusts within their organizations? I think you started to speak to it earlier, but in a way that survives any single person. So, for example, if you leave, or someone else that is key to the culture leaves, how do you suggest that organizations try to embed the trust so that it can survive that?
Well, I would hope that in our situation, using our example, would be if someone were to leave here, that we have a good track record, and whatever we're doing prior to that, whatever it was, we should continue to stay the course. So I would hope that's with integrity. For example, our not just my company, but the entire industry. It's a neat thing to point out, to give you an idea of what we do. We have 0 consumer complaints in the last 5 years in the United States. 0.
Zero. Really?
The reason nobody gets upset is we're praising their policy for free, whether it works or it doesn't. It didn't cost them anything, and if we can beat it, the cash surrender value or any other inferior option, they get more money. So we're trying to think, what would people complain
Right.
about? So we kind of
So
like
then,
the position we're in, right? We're not set. There's no like, oh, if you got appraisal, here's a bill for $2,000. We don't bill anybody for that. We also don't work on things we know aren't going to work or not going to
right.
potentially. So that's the point is like, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. It isn't broke over here. Sure, we could probably make more money by doing things differently, but that would probably lose a lot of integrity along the way, which we're not interested in.
Hmm, that's quite interesting. So what, oh, wow, your model, it sounds like your model is designed for customer satisfaction then.
Well,
The
yeah.
the actual product and the model.
Oh, we are giving people, we're educating them that they can do this, because the 90% of the country has no idea you can do it. So think about that, 90%. Um, and then when we deliver the product, it usually helps the agent who is dealing with the client. If he or she brought the agent to us, they're able to take the money they get and potentially sell them another product. So they sell them an annuity, or they long-term care plan over here in the United States, very popular. The biggest pressing concern for people in the demographic that we serve is retirement. And what are they going to do in retirement? Where are they going to live? What happens if they need to go to assisted living, memory care, et cetera? Which, by the way, I live in Florida, as you alluded to earlier. Checking into an assisted living facility or a memory care facility in Florida is no different than checking into the Ritz-Carlton. You might as well just check in the Ritz-Carlton, because the food's better. You can live in a smaller bedroom, but have your room service delivered every day, because it's crazy expensive. So what's happening in this country, which is the booming, and now that I say it, and if your phone can hear it, you'll be hit with articles for the rest of the next 90 days. It's called aging in place. So you own a home, you've probably paid for it, you're close to having it paid off, or you may have paid it off. And you're saying, oh, you need to go to an assisted living facility, or you need to go to an adult community. The home's too big, et cetera. And rather than sell your home and give away all that equity, right, to the place you're going to move into, people are staying in their home, except now they're retrofitting that home to fit their changing needs, both now and into the future. They're bringing their health care into the home as opposed to going somewhere else to get it. And in turn, saving that asset, the home, for the family later on in life, such as the grandkids, et cetera, that now have a home to inherit, as opposed to whatever organization you gifted the money to stay in an apartment. My mother lives in one. Fortunately, she's a retired school teacher and saved enough money and had enough money saved after my father passed to stay in this community, but it's expensive. And our life settlements are helping people either stave off that cost or use the money to go into one of those places should they not have a home anymore. So it just gives them more flexibility. And that's what it is. So I look at, my mom and dad are both teachers. I always say I'm a teacher, because that's really what I feel like I'm doing every day, is teaching somebody to somebody that has no idea you can do this. People go like, what? You can sell your life insurance? They'll say it all the time. And I go, yes, you can.
So as you were describing different scenarios, you talked about how the market changed and people with HIV were no longer passing away, and then the market changed again. Like as the markets that you serve shift, how do leaders, CEOs or decision makers determine which parts of their business to pivot and which core principles to preserve?
Well, fortunately, we don't have to pivot too much.
Mhm.
My job is communication, right? Anything that I get that I feel is information that benefited me, I want to share. So I want to share that with my teammates, if you will, the people that work for me. When you mentioned 40 people, right now we have about 20 people in-house and about 20 that don't work remotely. But we also have thousands of agents that work with us across the United
Mhm.
States. And we share all this information with them so they're better prepared, such as things that would change in our business with the types of policies that are sold, what they're looking for, life expectancies may increase. When we were in the HIV and AIDS market, the average life expectancy was about 3 years that were sold. Now the average age is about 12-year life expectancies, going out to as far as 20 or beyond. And you say to yourself, well, who's going to buy a 20-year life expectancy, right? Sounds like a long time. Who would have money to sit and hold a policy for 20 years? And the answer is pension funds. Pension funds. They love it because they can put their money in there. It's a stable asset. It's uncorrelated. It's a life insurance policy. So when the market crashes one day, the death benefit stays the same. The life expectancy stays the same. The premiums stay the same. It's stable. The reality is when you buy those longer life expectancies like they're doing, the upside potential of an early maturity, someone passing away before they're supposed to, increases because now you have 20 years as opposed to 5 or 3. So when somebody buys a 20-year life expectancy and someone dies in 2 years, no fault of their own, they just died for whatever reason. Pickleball would be one crazy example, but you're seeing that on the rise. That pension fund all of a sudden gets a lot of their money sooner than they anticipated. And everyone says, oh, they're going to make a fortune. No, they're pension funds. They put it back into the pension fund. And then what happens is as they get to year 20, and all of a sudden there's 10 or 15 policies still straggling on, those early maturities help pay the ones that go longer. So that's happened in our business.
For organization, and I don't know if you can help with this, but for organizations who have to pivot because their business model isn't set up to accommodate most people based on need, what would you suggest to them?
Well, I'm so early in my life, I was a lifeguard.
Mm.
I'll explain it. If I'm swimming to shore on my early morning workout, or in a race for that matter, and in front of me is a shark, I'm not going to continue to swim towards the shark. I'm going to go around it.
That's
So
good.
when obstacles come your way, you
Mhm.
need to circumnavigate the problem, right? You don't want to plow through it. You want to acknowledge that it's there, but you want to go around it. So that's true in almost anything that comes your way. When you have to, recalibrate based upon market conditions that you had no say in whatsoever, but they just happen. Interest rates fluctuating in the financial sector, whatever it is, you have to figure a way around it. You can't quit. You got to try. You can't. Maybe you won't solve all the problems, but you'll figure a way out over time. You'll figure a way. I mean, it can't. Everybody's not going to be successful in every circumstance,
Mhm.
including myself. But we're not going to also, at least from my perspective, is I like people not to know that I'm nervous. I could be very nervous, but you'll never know it. And I think leaders do that, do a better job. That's why they're leaders, because they're the ones you don't want to see sweat. And that's, when you look at, think of football analogy, the quarterback is freaking out because it's 4th and 13, but he's not going to let the huddle know that.
Mhm.
He's going to let them know they're going to score.
I think in wrapping up, I have a challenge, I guess. If there's one thing that you would like for our audience to remember about this conversation, what would it be?
Well, if you love something like I do, my job, you'll do anything to protect it without risking your integrity tie it up in a knot with yours.
Mhm.
You'll work harder, you'll work longer, you'll do whatever's necessary to survive. And you have to remember that it's not just about you, it's about your team. It's never just you because you're part of a much bigger picture, which is your team and your community and your country and your world. And you want to be doing something to kind of pay it forward to the next generation.
That's a powerful statement, Rob. And with that, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of Evolve, Leadership Through Disruption and Integrity-Based Cultures. Uh, both of these topics are very important to our modern contexts. And in your insights and information about insurance will certainly support leaders and anybody listening with thinking more about these topics. Rob, before we sign off, please share with our listeners how they can connect with you.
Very easily. My email is rob@lisettlements, which is settlements.com. My cell phone number is 954-599-4433. And my website is www.lisettlements.com.
Fantastic. This has been Yvette Bethel and Rob Haynie, and we'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us for Evolve, Reinventing Leadership, Building Freedom Cultures.
Thank you for listening to Evolve, Reinventing Leadership, Building Freedom Cultures. Learn more about our proprietary trust, leadership, and culture courses and certifications at the IFB Academy. You can check them out at organizationalsoul.learnworlds.com.